Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to Table Talk, a special edition. Not usually here on Fridays, so welcome. 802 Scoop, 185 North Main Street in Barre. A beautiful day. We did get some great rain over the last few days. I wish it was more for sure. They say we're coming up onto a very sunny and dry week, and spent some time with my son at the farm again, and he could definitely use some more rain. But I guess we just have to do the rain dance a little more than what we've been doing or something, which seems odd to even talk about at this moment, considering my guest. So with me today, the heart of Barre. With me today is the heart of Barre, Shawna Trader and Dierdra Michelle. And you both worked extremely hard on this project. And why is it odd that I'm talking about rain? Because you're going to talk all about the flood and your experiences and the experience of others. So welcome, thank you for joining me, and we'll let you kick it off.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah,
thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
You have some exciting things coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not that it already hasn't been, but
Well, this project has really become very enveloping to my entire life for the last 2 years, and I would say Shawna would feel pretty much the same, to the point that I have been thinking about floods all the time, which is strange with our drought right now. My plants would like some water.
yeah.
But water is not the problem.
No, for sure not.
And because water is wonderful and brings us life. So, but so the Heart of Barre, if you haven't experienced it yet, is a project where we have invited 23 people into the project who share their story of the floods in 2023 and 2024 in Barre, and there are a few people from Plainfield who have their experiences there from the next year, and part of the whole, the concept came to me when I wanted to do something for my city, and I had mucked out as a 60-year-old woman. There's only so much mucking that I really have to offer. My community, and as an artist, there's only so much capital that I can actually share. So what I can share in spades is my capacity to make artwork. And so I looked at how can I take the art that is part of who I am and give that to my city to help with the issues and that are built around the flooding and the people of the flooding. And so I decided I came up with this crazy idea, like, what if I paint the people who were impacted by the floods, and we can tell their stories, and how will that help us as a community to heal, and help us as a community to prepare for the next flood. So I invited Shawna over to my house, and it was the early winter, December of 2023, right? And we talked about it, and I thought, am I just being crazy? And Shawna said, no.
Yeah.
This is important stuff.
And they were right on, right with excitement as to what they could bring to the table too, because I think as we build community, we all can only bring that which is truly from ourselves, and then it's seamless, and we're able to give in a way that doesn't hurt ourselves or our lives or who we are, but yet helps the community.
And really, now you have a clear marking of history that we may not otherwise have. I mean, it's a very clear marking of history now.
And it evolved.
It's true. Yeah, the project is part a love letter to Barre and its people, and it does answer that question. If you ask what is the heart of Barre, it is the people that live in Barre. And we don't differentiate, by the way, between Barre City and Barre Town. The project includes folks from the city, the town, also Berlin, and there's a person or two from Montpelier and Plainfield, but they all worked in the flood here in Barre. They all were impacted by the floods here in Barre in some way or another. You know, the flood made survivors of us all. Even if your home was unimpacted, maybe you showed up as a volunteer, or maybe you donated or something like that.
Yeah.
So in that way, we all became flood survivors, and I think that's the most powerful piece that brings us together after disaster, is that we suddenly were kind of thrust into community, whether we were ready for it or not. But it has a way of making us think and move in new ways that we've never thought or moved before. That's the power of catastrophe, and it would be a real shame to not capitalize on that, which is why we want to keep this memory going, as you say. It is part time capsule. It's a history project, it's art, it's literature, and of course it's all about the people. So,
And we did have people. There were literally people from all over.
There was,
not just
yeah.
in the state of Vermont, but literally people from all over
Who came to help.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had people out front of Rainbow Bridge during the 23 flood that were from Iran.
Wow.
So there's people from all over the world that showed up to help out in Barre, which is pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
And during that 23 flood, and you know, I know you're aware, Raylene, of how instrumental Shawna was in so much that was done in the immediate response to flooding. I live on the north end, so I'm right over on Brook Street, which is a lot of flooding. A lot of people around me were impacted in a bad way. Our house, thankfully, was not. Not to say that the next flood couldn't impact our house, you know. But Shawna, they came by on their trike handing out water and so on and so forth. And I pulled them aside. I said, what can I do if I gave you 10 pieces of artwork? Could we auction them off through Rainbow Bridge to raise money for people who lost, who just need food or need a refrigerator or need whatever? And I think we raised close to $1,000 with that, you know, and they were just like simple pieces of artwork that I had already, you know, so I just like, this is what I have, can we auction this off and raise some money? And that kind of started us working, and that's what precipitated me inviting them over in December to talk about this bigger idea of what else could happen. You know, my inception dream for this Heart of Barre was that people would look at these portraits and they would find themselves in one of the stories. And when we're able to find ourselves in a story of trauma or struggle, we're able to have more compassion and we're more willing to step out of ourselves to help. And so it's my hope even to this day and down the road as this project lives on in its own right, that people will find, you know, camaraderie with the people who are in there, because their stories are told, their faces are there, their voices are heard, because we have QR codes, so you can listen to a portion of their interview.
Right.
So, I mean, that is the whole purpose of the project, is that we are able to build community. And if you look at the paintings itself, I know you weren't there for the opening, but I'm sure you saw it was in Nelson's. There are 16 by 20 canvases that are grouped together in an 80 by 80. And that was done on purpose from my part, because community is always a single person, but they're grouped together with other single people to create a whole. So we all bring our own lives and our own stories and our own ideas to everything we do, but that doesn't make us less community. We still can hold that individuality and also be part of a greater community. So.
Now, when you're all talking about this, when you get together in this group and you start discussing it, how do you determine whose story you're going to tell? Or is it even it's not even, in my mind, it's not even a who. When you're talking about Bob Nelson, let's say, you know, he saw hundreds and hundreds of people that flocked to the store and needed his help, then he needed the help of others. And so even though you're telling an individual story, you're really, I mean, you're not in a big way, because they're going to, how do you choose all of that? How do you decide how all of that's going to play out?
Well, first off, before you start, and I want you to go, is the group is right here. This is the group. Go ahead.
How we chose was based on the relationships that we made during the flood work. So for instance, Dierdra and I, when we had a brainstorming session about who we wanted to invite to the project, my work had put me into contact with so many people and so many different types of people. So it was important to me that we got a spectrum of folks, from business owners, homeowners, tenants, and unhoused folks, so we could have a large view, a big perspective of how the flood impacted each of them. So that's what you'll see in the project. You'll see a couple of business owners, you'll see a few homeowners, you'll see a few tenants, and so forth. That was really important. These were all people that I had just met doing my work over the last 2 years. People that knew me, trusted me, and people that I could walk up to and say, we're trying to do this project, and I really think you've got something to add to the story. You know, are you interested? And we sent out about 30 invites, and knowing that we were only doing 20 folks, and I fully expected some people to say no thanks, and everyone was an emphatic yes, so we had to turn away several people. But it was a testament to not just the relationships that we had built in those times, but also how important it was for them to tell their story and to contribute to this larger project of what it means to have lived in this area and survive these floods. And everyone was incredibly gracious, and we thank them from the bottom of our hearts, because this project doesn't exist without them.
Well, and I think it's important that we say and note that even though you turned away 10 or so people, their stories didn't go away, though, because you'll always share them. You were a part of that. That was something that was a part of you as well. And I remember you rode around on the bike. You did food and water, and what did you call it? I can't remember now.
Rainbow Response?
No, when you did the food, I can't even remember. And you had the little animal in your basket.
Oh. That was the farmer's market, Bandit.
Yeah, Bandit. Yep,
Yeah,
that's right.
Bandit was our little dog.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was actually a dream that I had going back to 2016. I was dumpster diving. I was poor, and I was realizing how much food we were throwing away in America. And I started dumpster diving, and I had this dream of being able to provide this food that I was harvesting to everyone in the community, and it was going to be called the Freegan Food Stand. Freeganism, if you don't know, is a diet where all you eat is free food. So the Freegan Food Stand, it took about 8 years to come into fruition, but it happened right here in Barre City, and it was great. And that was thanks to the Vermont Food Bank and the Vermont Bicycle Shop, which hooked us up with the bike and everything else. So again, it took a lot of collaboration to make that happen.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, this is the first collaborative art project I've done, and I've been painting for 15 years, and I'm a full-time studio artist. That's what I do. And the ways that having to collaborate as a community and with other people, it really makes you grow. It makes you understand the value of those people around you. It also makes you be able to kind of negotiate and to get people to be part of your idea. Because I knew in the beginning, before there was any painting done, before there was any interviews, I was running around town saying, I want to make this big piece of artwork, and I'm looking for a space. And I want to know, and this is what it's about. And I always felt like I would talk to these people, and they'd be like, whatever, crazy lady. Because even though it was fully formed in my head where we were going, it was hard to explain that to someone who is not in my head, which if you're not in my head, you are very lucky.
One of the lessons from the project is that we are revealed through each other, meaning I can't really fully know myself until I get to know you or someone else. It's by knowing other people that it actually challenges us to know ourselves on a deeper level. And that's one of the things we've learned in the project that I think is what Deirdre's just talking about.
Yeah. So.
And there's a lot of lessons in the project. We say that there's 10 lessons, but in reality, each lesson contains little snippets of other lessons. Some of the poems contain lessons that aren't talked about in there. So there's a lot to glean from this.
Yeah, and so those people who haven't seen the project yet, this is a giant 80 by 80. And along with each person, Shawna wrote either a poem or a lesson that goes along. So there's like another acetate or acrylic 16, it doesn't matter what size it is, information that has a little bio and has either a lesson, one of 10 lessons, or one of 10 poems. And Shawna is the writer or the poet for this, and they wrote the lessons and the poems, and trying to keep like an equal balance, because not everybody is moved by a visual expression.
Yeah.
And not everybody is moved by a written expression. And then we also have the QR codes, which gives you a teeny snippet so you can hear everybody's voice, like maybe no more than but the longest might be a minute. And so that, because some people need to hear things, we all learn differently, and as we all come to the community bringing different gifts, we all need different things to be able to get information.
And if all this sounds like a lot, we invite you to come to the reception on October 3rd, Friday at 4 p.m. at the State House. It's in the card room.
Yeah.
From 4 to 7 we'll be there. There'll be refreshments and live music. And there you can not only see the project, but you'll actually hear from some of the participants of the project. And obviously it'll be an opportunity for all of us to get together and conversate and kind of discuss what's going on there.
Now, how long is it going to stay in the State House? Will it remain there for months and months and months and months now, or maybe even years?
Yes, yeah. That was kind of that was a boon in some ways. I wasn't expecting this piece to go into the State House. And we got invited by David Sheets, who is the Vermont State Curator, to bring the entire project into the State House for 5 months.
Nice.
So it went up in September, right after it left Nelson's Hardware, and it will stay till the end of January. So it's there right now for leaf peeping season. Kind of the winter gets a little quiet at the State House.
Yeah.
And then January, when the legislature comes back into session, it'll be there for them to experience it. And then it's coming out in the end, I think it's something like the 28th, but don't quote me on that, of
And-
January.
And then it's coming to the Aldrich Public Library, and it's going to live there indefinitely.
Yeah.
That's what I was just
So,
going to
Yeah.
ask.
yeah, and so if you miss it at the State House, it'll be at the Aldrich Public Library
Yeah.
starting in February of 2026. We are going to have a little launch party. We're going to invite everyone in Barre to come to see it. We're also launching a book that catalogs the project, so there's an option for that, and that money will be raised and donated to a good cause. Half
Yeah.
of it will be going to the Aldrich Public Library, and the other half of it to Barre Up, which, as you might know, does flood recovery
Right,
work.
does
Yeah.
the recovery.
So like the entire project, Raylene, is truly a gift to the city. And the city has paid nothing for it. There's no taxpayer money. There's nothing like that that's come into this project. It's entirely a gifting to everyone in our community for this time, for this period of who we are.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that you said, it's important to note that even if you weren't directly impacted, you were impacted.
sure.
Just by the people around you, family, friends. It was catastrophic. It was absolutely horrible. Just what we went through here is...
This had to flood, yes?
Yeah, like just
Yeah.
here. And we were out of this space for over a year. And to clean up, rebuild, and it was a lot. It was a lot. And then the same thing, friends and family. And luckily, where my home is up on the hill, it's up off of Hill Street. And so I was up out of this, but 12, 14 hours a day downtown, just trying to help because it was just devastating. Devastating. And you still, when you look around, you still see the effects of it all. And there's still so many people impacted 2 years later. We're 2 years, 3 years into it, and here we are. It's
remember
it's sad.
days after the flood, it was no more than two or 3 days after the flood, I was walking my dog up at the cow pasture. And something I do on a regular basis. And I look down at the open field at the side of the cow pasture. You can look down into the city. And there was so much dirt and dust, and it was raising up into the air. It looked like the city was on fire because of just people driving around and all of the silt that was, and that kind of thing, we don't realize how stressful it is to our spirits. You know, we might, you know, we deal with it, we get to work when we need to get to work, but it does impact us, and we do feel stress from that.
Yeah, and especially I think we came out of a long winter too that year. It seemed like we came out of a long winter. Summer had just started, and then it was all the brown, the dirt, the muck.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
like no brightness anywhere.
Yeah.
It seemed just all the way around.
Yeah, when 302 closed, my street was the main street. So all of the trucks and all of the traffic, we had to keep all our windows closed. And every day you could like make pictures on your windshield of your car because
Yeah.
there was so much dirt.
There was also wildfire smoke in 23. There was,
that's
Yes.
true.
There was wildfire smoke,
Yep.
so it added to the haze. It was truly a respiratory catastrophe.
Yes, it was. It
on
really
top of
was.
everything
Yeah.
else, yeah.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little more about the poetry and how that all worked out for you?
Yeah. So, like I said, this project isn't possible without the participants. The poetry is me kind of listening to these stories. I would record the people during the interviews on a little tape recorder, and then I would walk the streets of Barre and I would listen to their words, and I would just let the city and the people's words inspire me, and let them move through me and kind of just act as like a poetic filter. So their interviews would come into my ears, and then the city and the sounds of the people. And I've been writing poetry since I was a kid, so I would just let it come out. A lot of the poetry contains kind of a kernel of their message, you know, maybe a really important line or a few words, and then I've built around that, adding into it my own experiences and the experiences of other people too, but really trying to honor the stories of the people from the interviews that those poems were created. And I think, again, we have received so much positive feedback from the people. You know, I would share the poetry with them after I'd wrote it before we published it, and a lot of them were blown away by how it spoke to their story and how wonderful it was. So I'm really excited to share this poetry with everybody. As I said, each poem also contains within it little lessons that we can learn. And I think, if I remember correctly, 8 out of 10 poems has a question in it. So some of this project is an attempt to answer, you know, what is community, how do we get it, and why does it matter? But also importantly, it asks a lot of questions, because oftentimes we're not asking the right questions when it comes to solving a problem. You know, Einstein said that if he had 60 minutes to solve a problem, he would spend 59 minutes figuring out the question, because that's ultimately what leads to a great solution. And so there's a lot of questions asked in this project that are meant to make you think and get those wheels turning about how we do it. Because one of the things we've learned is that community is complex, it's complicated, it's not so simple. On one hand, and on the other hand, it is, of course, there's always that 4-letter L word that's forbidden in politics, which is love. But if you take away that, it's pretty complicated. How do we get community? There's a lot of factors leading into it. I think the poetry is one way to express pain, love, joy, and gratitude that all of these survivors felt, and they speak to something really special that was in their lives. As a, for instance, Peter Anthony's poetry. He lost his home of 46 years, and yet when you talk to him, it's his garden, his little backyard side garden, you know, that he had worked for 46 years. You know, you're not talking about something very expensive, but you're talking about the heart, the amount of love that was poured into that dirt for 46 years. And no longer having access to those vegetables or those flowers that his wife grew. You know, those are the kinds of like poetic and romantic elements that a lot of people brought to their stories, that I think are important, and it's really cool that it got to be expressed in poetry.
when you sit to write, does it make it easier or harder that that you've walked through all of this with some? Is it because you have to kind of set aside your own experience with what happened, right? Because truthfully, I mean, you were right beside a lot of people. You were in their homes, you were mucking out, you were bringing food, you were doing all of those things. So does that make it easier or harder when you go to write something because you may have saw or maybe even had a different connection with it all than they had?
It's actually impossible for me to set aside my own experiences, my own thoughts and emotions from this project. Part of the poetry is really a collaboration between myself and the speaker. You know, yes, the poetry is their story, but it's impossible for me to not see myself in it and reflect my own experiences in it. And like, so for instance, earlier you mentioned some of the people, you know, we couldn't interview everyone, you know what I mean? Some people had to be turned away. And as you said, their stories live on, and actually they live on in this project. And this is a good example of that. So even if it's a poem based on the story of Nicholas Castro, for instance, it doesn't mean, or a lesson from him, it doesn't mean that other people's stories are not kind of woven into that too. It would be impossible, and it would be unwise of me to not weave the web of showing all these stories. The bottom line is that there were some very specific experiences of people, and there were some very universal experiences. We all experienced loss. We all experienced gratitude because someone came to our aid, especially people that we didn't expect or didn't know before, total strangers. So there are some very universal experiences that kind of weave throughout the project. Yeah.
It is pretty amazing. And I probably won't go to the State House just because I will wait until it comes to the library.
That's fine. That's fine.
Just because. Yeah. It's but I'm excited for it to be, well, for you to do the open house and for more people to be involved and hopefully ask more questions. And I was excited and happy to do this for the same reason, so that more people maybe will ask more questions and want to see it and spread the word about it. And if you can't see it now we know that it will be at the library and it will always be there. And that's where it will truly become a part of history. Not that it's not already. I think that of course, many people talk about the flood. It affected so many people across the entire state of Vermont. But I think that what you just said is so true, even with the story of that Nicholas or the poem or the lesson, is that another city manager could totally relate to the battle that they were going through. They have, a million things and questions and needs over their head, and they're trying to go as fast as they can while maybe they're experiencing their own hardships and stuff. That's truly, or the grandmother or sister or brother knowing that I got to fix my own house, or a parent saying, but my daughter's downtown and she's totally flooded out too. How do I, how do I do all of this?
Yeah.
And so many people were feeling that way.
Yeah.
In Johnson, over at Jenna's Promise, and I, talking to Don Tatro and the people over there that I know and family that I have over there, and knowing that they were experiencing the same thing, but we needed so much right here. There was no way to divide my time in between the two places, and how that really kind of, it made you feel torn apart, but you felt like it was, this is just, they were going to get help too, and hopefully their community rallied just as well as ours did. It's the whole thing was, as a whole, it was a lot, for sure.
Precisely. Thanks for articulating that so well. The project has Joe Aldrich, who's one of our emergency management people, Nicholas Castro. It has former mayor and state legislator Peter Anthony, former state legislator Jonathan Williams, former city councilwoman Sam Stockwell. and then on top of that, business owners, homeowners, tenants, etc. So there's actually a lot. If you're a city planner, a community builder, any kind of municipal entity, I think that there's a lot to be seen in this project. Not to mention if you're just a person who has a heart and gives a damn about our city or your own community. These lessons are translatable across all cities. I might say, especially if you're a rural town, especially if you're a rural town post-disaster, but a lot of these lessons are translatable to any city in America.
Yeah.
One of the projects, or one of the lessons from the project is, if you want to be a strong nation, we start by being strong neighbors.
Yeah.
So the neighbor is the fundamental building block of community. And from there we can build to stronger cities, states, and the nation. So these lessons contain kernels of truth that were hard won. And they are absolutely valuable for anyone in America that's looking to improve and make their own city more resilient, and even their own family.
You know, I just had a thought, if that, like, basis of being a neighbor and kind of that lesson helps us through times of trouble and hardship, what could it do in times when things are good? If we had that kind of base of being a neighbor with each other, of being aware and open to each other,
Yeah,
you know, and that's exciting to me.
it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And sorry to keep spewing lessons, but
No.
another lesson is that a good neighbor is not restricted to city lines
Yeah.
or state boundaries. A good neighbor is an archetype. As we saw, when people show up from all over the world to your tiny town in Vermont, that's proof that good neighbors can live all over the world. It's not bound to your neighborhood. It's bound to your heart and your soul. And therefore, a good neighbor could be anywhere in the world. And that's really what we should be driving for, is a world full of good neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, same question for you, Dierdra,
Sure.
as far as you know, how you built or decided what you were going to paint, how you were going to paint. Is it sort of the same thing where your own feeling and your own experience comes out in your work as well, and knowing? Maybe did you know some of them so that their expressions, or maybe something that you saw that somebody else didn't see, or how do you decide, like, when it's all said and done, what, maybe a year later, or were you doing it as well? In December you started, you said.
It took a while for us to get to the interview process, so I'll kind of give you this piece of inside information. So I wrote some grants. I didn't get any grants, but the grants mandated that I couldn't start the work until they said no. So I had to kind of wait for the work, and I was like raring to go. But in hindsight, I think it was good because it gave us more planning time and more kind of interaction time before the work actually started. But once we had passed over that, and I got over my little being butthurt that I didn't get any grants, we started doing the interview process. And Shawna is amazing at interviewing, very amazing listener. And so they had come up with a set list of questions that they asked every single person. We invited each person to come to my studio. And they sat in the same chair in my studio, and Shawna and I stayed on the other side of the studio, and I would take pictures of them. Yep. So I took like 300 pictures at least of every single person in the project. And as Shawna was asking questions and interviewing, which we were recording, I just took pictures. And I was relatively quiet. Occasionally I would peep up, but not usually. I kind of let the kind of flow of the interview take over and their story take over. So I had this beautiful experience to be a fly on the wall with each person. And really I was careful to pay attention to, you know, the emotional interaction of their story and their person, and I literally just was able to like absorb some of their personality, And then I would choose which pictures I wanted to work for and they would not be there when I did the painting. So when you're standing as a portrait artist and you're painting somebody, it's almost this very, very, it's a very personal thing. You have to really like that person when you do a painting, because it's intimately, you are there, you're staring at their eyes, you're working very carefully on their eyes, on their skin tones, and the things about their body that they chose to present in what you're working from. And so I really fell in love with each person, you know, because as I was standing with them alone in my studio and working, so there is part of me in each portrait, because it's that interplay of what their stories said. And I, you know, everybody was delightful. The whole interview process was really not only delightful, but I found that it buoyed me in ways that I was not expecting, because the humanity that came through with each person, and it almost was as if every person who was interviewed, they cried, but they didn't cry for what they lost. They cried for the way people stood beside them and was there for them. They didn't, you know, nobody expects someone to come in and fix their life. They just expect someone to come in and be aware that their life is in a struggle and you are there standing beside them. You know, and that really was super helpful, I think, through the whole process. I found that it's changed my, I've grown through all of this. I've grown in my understanding of other people and my willingness and openness towards other people. So you have something to add there?
Yeah, I know you usually add to me, but I'll add to you this time, because I would say that Dierdra definitely saw things. So for instance, Ron Raymond was one of our participants, and Ron lost his dog in one of the floods. And Dierdra asked him to share a picture of the dog, Bingo. So the dog is actually in the portrait. Ron is holding up a photo of his dog that he lost in the flood. And that dog in Ron's story is also immortalized in a poem as well. So, you know, she was able to, through the visual aspect, she was able to bring these people's stories to life beyond just painting their face or their bodies or whatever, but also, like she said, what they were wearing or their postures, or in the case where we had families like Bob and Linda, or Sarah and
I know,
Harrison and everyone.
they were a challenge.
Yeah, so there's a couple.
Lovely challenge.
Yeah. So there's a couple portraits that are actually multiple people. There's a family, and there's Bob and Linda. So, you know, she was able to bring to life little aspects of them that I think are important.
You know, one of the things I was thinking as I was painting each piece is I want you to be able to read their poem, hear their voice, and feel like the way that I portrayed the portrait, they are speaking with you. So it's maybe not as much of a formal portraiture, kind of like stoic with any of them. It's almost like I want you to feel like they are sitting in front of you and you are actually getting the experience of them sharing their story with you.
You can feel the emotion of it
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
You can feel that, sense that, see that in them, in each one.
And the family of three, I just need to make sure that I say, was only a challenge because there was a young man who did not want to sit still.
Go figure.
And when you're trying to get a photograph of a young man who won't sit still and two other people, that's three people who have to be like right in the
But Harrison,
but
he was the young,
it worked out. And it's good to have challenges.
Harrison, who was the young person she's referring to, taught us a valuable lesson. He's in preschool, and when we asked him, you know, how do you make a new friend, his answer is you start by just saying hi. And so one of the lessons of the story is very simply that community starts with an introduction.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a small wave or a hi or a how you doing, you know, good and you type
or
of
even
thing.
a smile.
Or even a smile.
Yeah.
The smallest little gestures can lead to a new relationship, and that's a really powerful piece of this. So thank you, Harrison.
Now, you spoke of a book.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about that and when that can be expected, or are you?
We're hoping February. Yeah. We're hoping when we launch in the in the public library, that we will have the book at that
Yeah.
time. And it is feasible. We do have an editor and a publisher who's working with us right now. And you have something to say, I'll hop in
Well,
after
just that the book itself doesn't exist yet, but again, it's kind of a catalog of the project. So it will have every painting, it'll have every lesson, every poem. It'll have a little bit of extra material that we couldn't fit into the project. And Dierdra has a wonderful friend and editor that is working with us
Yeah.
pro bono to help us get this looking
So
really
maybe the
nicely.
missing 10 in
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah, maybe the missing 10.
Well, we are, yeah, and you know, when you had spoken that maybe another town manager could like glean from Nicholas's story, that's really part of our dream, is that we get this book in like all the libraries in Vermont, and that when other places are struggling with flooding, that we could send the book to them.
Yeah.
You know, because there are lessons in here of how to navigate
Yeah.
post-flood and keep like a community viable.
We're hoping to get a grant to help us
Yeah.
publish mini books so that we can share them with other Vermont libraries, so that there's at least one copy that people in their own towns can go
Yeah.
and look at.
Yeah.
And will we be able to buy them?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
And as we mentioned, the proceeds of the book are being split between the Aldrich Public Library and Barre Up. So
Yeah.
all of it's going to a good cause.
So yeah, what I'm trying to do is I'm hoping that I get enough funding from some kind of grant that it'll pay for the publishing of the book, and maybe a small stipend to the person who's helping us with the editing, and a stipend to both of us. And then the book itself, all of the proceeds from that will go to charity. So that it's there's really nothing about this book that I'm trying to make, you know, it's an opportunity for us to share what we do, but this whole project is about giving to the community.
And then, not that it's not book related per se, but you speak of Barre Up. So Barre Up is still very much a thing.
It is.
And not that we want to talk about it, we even want to imagine it, but we know that the future, there will be another disaster, whether it be flood or fire or maybe even, you know, who knows what.
Maybe even
But-
flooding fire.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what is going to come
Sorry.
next. So you continue to be there, and you continue to build resources. And are you still in City Hall?
We're not in City Hall. We don't have an office. I'm no longer in the leadership team of Barre Up. I'm just a humble volunteer. I was the chair there until July.
Well, not just. There's no such thing as just. when it
I was
comes
the
to
chair
that.
there until July a couple months ago. But yeah, Barre Up, if you don't know, it's a long-term recovery group. It's a nonprofit. It serves Barre City. It was started by several really passionate, loving community folks after the 2023 flood. Amanda Gustin, Pam Wilson, I love you both, and myself and several others. But yes, it's important for long-term recovery, which, as you mentioned, it's not over. We're still feeling the impact. All you have to do is take a 5-second drive on the north end and see that people are still struggling to recover. Many of those people are folks that Barre Up has helped. And then importantly, it's also a community building organization. So for instance, they do a semi-regular Facing the Water event. So we're also about building community in blue sky times. We've taught people how to work generators and water pumps and, you know, spray mold out of their basement and stuff like
Prepare
that.
even.
Prepare.
Yeah.
So, you know, the big lessons from the flood in general is that, you know, preparation matters obviously, but building those relationships and community before the disaster is really important. So Barre Up is always working to do that, even if it's not disaster
Well, and,
times.
I mean, we have all kinds of different numbers and avenues where we can get help, and people for all different sorts of things, right? We know call 211 or things like that. So to have this is just another resource, right? It's another tool in the box.
It is, and it's homegrown. It's made by Barre City folk. It's for Barre City folk. So, you know, this is it. This is a real homegrown hometown organization And it is a 501c nonprofit, so all your donations are tax deductible. And there's no overhead. We don't have any paid staff, so all of that money is going directly to resident support.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's share again when this event is. And I have shared the poster, and I'll keep sharing
thank you.
it. We'll keep inviting people and make sure that as many people as possible know. And I have been sharing it with like the other chat pages, Montpelier, Plainfield, Northfield, other communities, because it's going to be in the State House. And as we just said, this can be shared and really felt by anybody, no matter where you were. So just trying to share it, get it out there as much as possibly can for you. But go ahead and tell us again a little bit about what's happening in Montpelier.
So I'll start and then you finish.
Okay.
Next Friday, the 3rd of October, from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, is Montpelier's Art Walk. And the State House will be open that night, and we will have, Shawna and I will be there, as well as some people from the painting, as many as can make it. We are there to share the stories and to talk with you. If you come in, we can kind of walk you through things. And there will be live music. And what's the name of the band?
It's not like that. It's very casual.
There'll
It's just
be
a few people
a
that
casual
got together.
music experience, and there will be like light fare, there is going to be some sort of organized time that there will be a little bit of a presentation, but I don't know when that is yet.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get David to answer me, and I will.
You're not going to sing and dance too, are you, Shawna?
No.
No.
Not until after. But yeah, we'll have an opening speech, and like Dierdra said, some participants will be there, and some of them have offered to share a little bit about their personal experience, not necessarily with the flood, but with the project and everything else too. So there'll be a few speakers there, and then it'll be free time to walk around and look at the project, read everything, and we'll be there too. So I'm really hoping, I've been inviting from people, neighbors in my neck of the woods, to come to the project, because I think this is an opportunity for neighbors to be together in the same room, surrounded by art that is all about how can we be better neighbors. And so I'm really hoping we have some good discussions and make some new relationships in that environment. And if I get to finish, I'll just say that, I made a plug for Barre Up, so it's only fair. If you'd like to contribute to this project, you absolutely can. And the Aldrich Public Library is our fiscal agent, so you can also make a tax-deductible donation to the Heart of Barre project. As we mentioned, it would go towards sponsoring the book or paying for some of the expenses that Dierdra and I have been paying for. So there's an opportunity to help us in that respect as well.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get that information up. I'll talk to you. We'll make sure we make a post and we get that information up
Thank you.
how people can contribute and
Thank you.
keep on supporting the project, so it can hopefully go forward and get a book. We'll be buying it on Amazon and all over there.
Yeah, if you're a book publisher and you'd like to help us out, we would love that help. The book is an important part, I think, of making this project go statewide and really adding to the impact of how many people it can help. But obviously, it costs a lot of money to print a book, so. That's
Can't even imagine. I have a couple of friends that are trying to do the same thing right now, and they say it's very expensive and it's hard.
It is, yeah.
I think it's really beautiful how this project has really had a life of its own. In some ways, it kind of has led us along to these places, because we weren't talking about a book. We weren't talking about being in the State House. We were just going to put this, get it up, and we even having it in Nelson's Hardware for the Heritage Festival. That was planned. I mean, we walked around town and found what was the most inviting open place that the most amount of people could see this. And I think the window of the hardware store was perfect, because
for sure.
they were so instrumental. It wasn't the best for the layout, but it didn't matter. That's not what it was about.
Right.
It was big enough to take everything, which is impressive for Nelson's.
Half the battle.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you both so much for coming
you're
in.
welcome.
It was a pleasure having you, and it's it's just a really cool product.
Thank
you. Thank you.
I really think it's
Thank
super
you.
cool. And like I said, as somebody that was down here a lot, who went through my own experiences and with people, it's just, it's really good to see the different views of it all, and to know, because, and I think that you even, when you see these different views, you find a little piece of that in your own experience as well. You think, because I don't know about you all, but there's some of it that I just want to forget, and that I kind of like bury somewhere a little bit. And so when you start talking to people and you start hearing more stories, you find those little pieces in your own self and your own experience. And so it's, and even in the faces, you know, when you see the face of a fireman or the city manager or somebody who lost their dog or their garden, and you see that, you can actually feel that in somebody, in a painting, I think. I don't know that everybody feels that way, but I always think that you can if you look, right? So it's cool that you have both of the connections, so that people can.
Thank you.
I just think it's awesome. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great turnout at in Montpelier, and for years to come at the library.
Thank
you.
So
Thank you.
good luck with the project.
Thank
and
you.
Bye,
Thank-
everyone.
Thank you so much.